A blue dot in a red state, trying to talk some sense. Always shoots it straight, he don't straddle no fence. A common man with a real plan, he's a friend to you and me. A long shot from the Lone Star, he's the voice that we need. Better vote like there's no tomorrow, 'cause friend, our future's on the line. We can't stay silent and we can't back down. We can't sit this one out this time. If you want a man who'll take a stand, talk straight and walk tall, it's time to ride or die and get behind old Texas Paul.
Howdy, folks. Time for the very belated edition of Sunday Coffee with Texas Paul. I appreciate y'all coming in. You have to forgive me. I have been traveling all day. Just got back in, and I am glad to be home, I tell you. I am glad to be home. And the first order of business is I need to say a giant thank you to Jen. We had a great conversation about Texas. She had some preconceived notions about Texas. We talked about it. I expressed to her how much I loved California. She was from California. How often I try to visit there. And apparently she got in touch with my wife and got a hold of our P.O. box and sent me this. And I absolutely love it. And I will wear it every chance I get. So today's topic is don't attack the firemen. There's a disturbing trend going around the country, and you stick with me, I'll get there, of homeowners attacking firemen while they're putting out the fires on their homes. And it's becoming more and more prevalent as people have become less and less respectful to police officers, firemen, paramedics. They're all dealing with more violence. But that is really just an example I'm using to talk about Democrats. Right now, all I hear out of Republicans is inflation, inflation, inflation. Well, for the last 3 years of the Trump administration, every economist screamed that we were going to have massive inflation. In fact, Alan Greenspan came out of retirement for the last 3 years of the Trump administration to write op-eds proclaiming that very fact, that the tax policy that the Trump administration had pursued was leading to mass inflation. And the Trump administration badly bungled the handling of COVID, which means they made no preparation. I mean, they didn't make preparations for COVID at all. They didn't handle COVID when it was a problem. So they had absolutely no plan for the other side of COVID. They didn't make a plan going in. They didn't make a plan while they were in. They damn sure didn't make a plan for coming out. And that's what I mean by don't attack the firemen. Joe Biden came into office and we were in a mess. We were in the middle of a shutdown. Everybody was locked into their houses. We were all going stir crazy. It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget quickly how bad it was. People weren't going to movie theaters. People weren't going to restaurants. People weren't going to the store. If they did go to the store, it was, buying very minimal items because the economy was shut down. I mean, it was a mess. And then along comes Joe Biden. And first thing they did was attack the problem that we had getting vials to manufacture. They came up with the vaccines, but they didn't have the vials to put them in. And that was the first problem that they addressed, was getting medical grade, the right size glass vials for vaccines so that they could be distributed. The second problem that they addressed was a needle shortage. Remember all the PPE shortages and everything that had been going on? Well, they had needle shortages also. And that was the next problem the Biden administration jumped onto and fixed. When that happened, I don't know if y'all remember old Woody Woodpecker, but there was a cartoon where he was locked up, frozen solid for winter. When they thawed him out, he just went nuts, man. Woo! Took off and ran around, did all the same stupid shit he'd done that got him frozen in the first place. Well, that's kind of what we did when we got out of COVID. Everybody went nuts, man. And the economy exploded overnight. On top of the $7 trillion in debt the Trump administration had saddled us with. And Alan Greenspan's predictions immediately became true. It was the perfect storm for inflation. So we have the Biden administration that have attacked so many issues. They got us stimulus packages to get the economy restarted. And once it was restarted, it was just one bill after another to get us moving again, to get us to be the number one economy in the world, to get us to have record low unemployment. And I don't know if you remember last Christmas, everybody kept fearing, oh my God, we're not going to have a Christmas. We're not going to have a Christmas because the economy had opened up. We had no shipping containers. So the cost of shipping went through the roof. They fixed that problem. They saved Christmas. Then everybody said, oh my God, gas prices are going through the roof because demand shot through the roof. Russia had invaded Ukraine. We'd put massive sanctions on Russia. We'd shut down their pipelines. It was one thing after another that was driving energy costs up. And we knew, because of the debt that we had incurred in the previous administration and the fact that they had no plans, let alone taken any action for what would happen post-COVID, the Biden administration was scrambling to take care. They've been putting out one fire after another fire after another fire. Now they've passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a start. Everybody has told you that is a start to reduce to reduce inflation. And what do we have? We have the Republicans attacking the firemen. They set our house on fire. The firemen have showed up to try to deal with it. And now we have the Republicans literally attacking the firemen that are putting out the fires. And that's just insane, folks. That is just insane. We have people on our side that are starting to really hem and haw about the inflation, saying, well, we got to do something about this, or everybody's talking about hard times and everybody's talking about, yeah, guys, well, let's look at hard times versus what we were when we got here. When we got here, we didn't know if any of us were going to have jobs in the future. I mean, we were in a real mess. And yeah, inflation's real. Miss Texas Paul and I will tell you, we were just walking around Walmart, and this is the second part about this. We've got corporations that are literally dumping fuel on the fire. We were talking about price increases that we were seeing in our local Walmart. And I'm going to call Walmart out. A lot of the prices increases that we saw there, I mean, you have to understand, my wife is a savant. She is amazing with numbers. She is like one of those movies where you see like the musical notes playing and stuff like that when somebody's thinking about numbers. That's her. She can tell you what stuff cost 5 years ago. It's just amazing. And she was pointing out that the rate of inflation being what it is, the inflation we're seeing at our local Walmart is outpacing that tremendously, almost by 100%. And lo and behold, I went and checked on Walmart's quarterly reports. Would you believe they're doing amazing? They're exceeding expectations, far exceeding expectations. Everything Wall Street thought that they could possibly do over the last 2 quarters, they have exceeded it by several percentage points. What a shock, right? You know, I can't think of anything more un-American than coming out of a pandemic that's turned into an endemic. And we're facing a new crisis on that front that I'll get to later. But price gouging on top of that. And anything Democrats do to try to stop major industries that affect our lives from price gouging, you know, there you have Republicans attacking the firemen. You know, old Joe Biden wanted $35 insulin. That's a substantial profit. That's a 300% profit on insulin. Costs them about $10 a vial to produce. So you're talking 350% profit. But that's not enough for them. They want 3,000% profit. And Republicans, when they passed the Inflation Act, put a poison pill in the bill. They, you know, old Joe Manchin wouldn't sign it, which surprisingly his daughter worked for, I believe it was Gilad. If I'm wrong about that, somebody correct me. And was primarily responsible for jacking insulin prices. Put a poison pill in the bill, wouldn't vote for it if they didn't put a delay on Medicare's ability or the overall capping of insulin prices. They allowed Medicare to do it, but not for the rest of us. In a recent debate with Herschel Walker, when he was asked about it, he told people to eat right. Which I guess that means we've got a candidate running for Senate that doesn't understand what type 1 diabetes is, which is pretty damn chilling. Everything about Herschel Walker is pretty damn chilling when you consider Republicans will vote for him anyways. But folks, I've been looking at this inflation issue, and it's going to be a tough one. It's the steps they're taking are already working. The interest rates increases are already working. We're seeing high-end spending on high-end items curtailing. You're seeing the wealthier portion, the top 10% of our wealth earners are actually starting to draw back their spending, and they're spending more at discounters like Walmart. So with reduced spending, you're going to see inflation brought down. It just that's the way the cycle works. I mean, They jack prices on us all. I don't know about you, but I'm not buying what I used to. I'm not out spending like I used to. We've probably cut our trips to the store in half, and we're definitely curbing our spending. And that's the cycle of it, folks. I mean, massive demand. What we can't control, though, is the massive amount of debt we incurred under the last administration and the way that works. You know, imagine if you had somebody coming to you, a friend of yours, wanting to borrow money, buddy of yours. But you know for a fact that buddy owes everybody and their brother money. Now, if you had to act like a bank and you were going to loan him money, would you do it cheaply? Now, I know he's a buddy of yours and everything, but would you do it cheaply if you were looking at this like a business, or would you charge him a lot? You'd charge him a lot. You would charge him a lot of interest. He owes everybody and their brother money. You want to make sure you at least get some payments out of it if everything goes wrong, right? Well, that's exactly how it works when we incur massive amounts of debt. And if you take a look at the tax policy, billionaires did fantastic. I invite you, get on Google. Don't take my word for it. Get on Google. Take a look at how well billionaires did during this inflation cycle. They did massively well. Their taxes were cut drastically. I was looking at a chart today. Their taxes were cut drastically down into the cellar, and their revenues spiked because they're charging way more for their goods than inflation would dictate they do. But fortunately for us, and unfortunately for major corporations, we're starting to see inventory buildups. Walmart is starting to cut in. They've put warnings out. Target's put warnings out. They're going to have to do some steep discounting because they don't have rooms in their stores for holiday items. So they are going to have to do some deep discounting. So if you're looking for that old grill or any of that summer stuff or anything that's seasonal in a Walmart, now's the time to buy it because it's on sale. But again, while we're trying to work our way through this, you know, I watched the Marcus Flowers, Marjorie Taylor Greene debate on my phone. And, you know, Marcus Flowers had a tightrope to walk. If he was too aggressive with her, he would turn voters off. If he would, you know, was too soft with her, he looked like he was weak. And I thought he struck a perfect tone. I did. I mean, there was a lot of things that people had said, yeah, get her with this question, get her with that question. But I think he did a good job of baiting her and then having her just bring the stupid herself. He denied her that victim status that she craves so much all the time. But where I'm going with this is, folks, Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't offer anything to deal with any issue that we're facing. All she wants to do is say, give me power because inflation is high. You know, inflation is high. But inflation is high because of their stupid tax policy. But they won't let us change the tax policy because the Senate's too tightly divided. But if we don't change the tax policy, we can't increase revenues and sell bonds at a cheaper rate. to drive down interest rates. But if we drive down interest rates, we have to do it at a slow, manageable pace, because if we drive them down too quickly, we'll undo everything we did by raising interest rates to slow the economy, to bring down inflation. It is a tremendously complicated system that they're managing. And folks, Republicans can't do it. I'm just going to tell you, Republicans cannot do this. They don't know how to govern. You got old Joe, keeping us out of World War III, juggling that. We've got Iran is exploding. You've got Viktor Orban's seeing his people are revolting right now in Hungary. Budapest is literally awash as we sit here now. The streets are filled with people. You can't drive a car through the streets in downtown Hungary right now, with people that are tired of the fascism. You got Russia that just blew up their own gas pipeline to try to draw Europe into forcing Ukraine to sue for peace. Because Russia feels that if they can threaten to not ever return natural gas sales or oil sales to Europe, that Europe will buckle. They did not. You're going to see over the next month or two that we're going to ease sanctions on Venezuela. After what the Saudis did, as far as, I don't know if you heard the threats coming out of Saudi Arabia today, but the prince's cousin, who is like second or third in power in Saudi Arabia, said that Saudis are glad to be martyred if we don't like what they're doing with their gas prices. They'll basically attack us, is what they said, if we take any actions against them. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to open the oil spigot in Venezuela, which we've had sanctions against forever. Make nice with them for a while. And pardon the expression, but we're going to eat a shit burger there because, well, we put a ton of pressure on them trying to get them to improve their human rights records, the way they treat their people, and we're not there yet with them. But we're going to need the oil. And that's just the reality of it, because we don't produce enough of the right kinds of oil here to be energy independent. We don't. We never have. We never have. And it'll take years to build refineries to rely solely on our own oil. So in the near future, just be prepared for Republicans to be attacking Democrats because we're making nice with Venezuela, because it's going to happen. But again, just like the idiots that attacked the firemen when their house is on fire, Republicans will be attacking Democrats for doing that, for keeping oil prices from soaring out of control. Right now we have inventories, oil inventories are high enough that it's not a big problem. Gas prices are creeping up due to speculation, not actual market demand. Market demand's actually pushing downward at this point because we have such high inventories. But that won't last forever, folks. That won't last forever. So what I've seen out of the Biden administration is that they're quietly competent. So I will bet you right now we have a trade negotiator in Venezuela making a deal that none of us are going to like. But I just want to tell you ahead of time, I don't like to candy coat shit. I like to tell it the way it is. This deal's going to suck, but it's going to keep the oil flowing and it's going to keep gas prices down. And it's what we have to do right now. So there we are. Well, folks, your time is valuable and I've used a lot of it. I'd love to hear your comments. As always, when I do one of these shows, I like to do a roundtable at the end. And I like to answer any questions that you have and talk on topics that you want to talk about. So please, any questions that you have or anything that you'd like to hear me talk on, take a minute to punch it in and put it in the live chat. And let's keep this conversation rolling for about another 10, 15 minutes. What do you say, folks? I always love when Uncle Fatty's in chat. Uncle Fatty doesn't bullshit around. He's like me. He just tells it the way it is. And yeah, that's a fact. That is a fact. That's a good one, Uncle Fatty. I appreciate you. Well, thank you, Carol. We were just doing a little traveling and taking care of a little business, and I didn't want to miss the show today because I love doing these. I really do, but it was just impossible to be here this morning. We just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. And I want to give you all a warning ahead of time. We'll be traveling off and on. It is getting near election time, and I'll fill you in on the other side of it, but I also do another show called TNT with Tennessee Brando. We are moving the days on that. Sorry about that. The camera freaked out a little bit. We're moving the days on that to Tuesday and Thursday to immediately follow the Midas Touch podcast. So we will be starting that show about 8:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'll still be doing Sunday coffee on my own. But next week, due to travel, I'm going to miss those broadcasts. It'll be the following week before we're back on schedule. And I apologize for that, folks, but it's unavoidable, and I'll explain it on the other side when I get back. You'll be glad I went, put it that way. This is a fact. Well put, well put. These MAGA Republicans not only can't govern, but they don't want to. They want the country to be their cult or church, take your pick. And I was looking at the comments today out of Donald Trump. He made some pretty anti-Semitic comments, and several other the far right, the farthest of the far right commenters did as well. One person coined the term today I'd never heard before, globo-homos. He said that we Democrats have a globo-homo policy position that he hates. Well, let me tell you, I don't give a damn who you love. I don't give a damn who you sleep with. It's not my business. I just want you to do well, because if you do well, if we all do well, we all do better. It's that simple. I don't wish bad on anybody. I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene making up lies about transgender kids. And I'm not going to go deep into the weeds on that, but they're not doing surgeries on kids, folks. They're not. She just lied through her teeth. They will do hormone therapy for younger children because it reduces their suicide rates tremendously. And kids that are And they're not guessing anymore. This isn't the 60s or the 70s. They keep saying kids that may be confused. Well, these kids aren't confused. They can actually do a brain scan on these young children, and they can actually tell if they have traits of a transgender person's brain. So no, they're not just confused. They can actually tell. It's just cruel. It's just cruel to deny them this medical treatment. There was a good comment here I wanted to grab. It was a question. No, Uncle Fatty, I was never a scout. I never was. But that's another institution we need to keep an eyeball on, because apparently they've got a really, really bad problem with keeping their hands off the little kiddies like Republicans do. Well, I can't find the comment, but somebody had asked about if I'd heard the story about Lauren Boebert, and yes, I did. If y'all are unaware, that Lauren Boebert's neighbors hate her with a passion, and they hate being around her. They've run into money since she's been in office because of, well, fuck it, Republicans are criminals. You know, Eric Swalwell is broke. He is. He's got more kids than he knows what to do with it. He's got a net worth of a few $1,000s. I mean, he's got a mortgage. The guy's broke. He is. Lauren Boebert, she's been in office for 2 years, and now she's got a net worth of something upwards of $4 million. So she moved uptown and moved in with some neighbors, and she still acts like a freaking piece of shit hillbilly idiot. You know, and despite the fact that her restaurant went into bankruptcy and she closed down, she's got a bucket full of money now, and she's buying her kids all these toys, and they run around. They drive their razors up and down the street. I don't know if you heard about this one, but one of her kids was driving a razor up and down the street, and one of the neighbors waved him down and said, "Hey man, can you slow that down? There's people, kids, dogs, and stuff like that. It's kind of dangerous for you to be driving 40, 50 miles an hour up and down the street here." And Lauren Boebert's husband, Todd, came down, tried to start a fight with the guy, ran over his mailbox. Well, another neighbor had a husky that got out, as huskies will do. If you've ever known anybody that's had huskies or had huskies yourself, they are magicians. They climb like monkeys, and they're amazing at escaping. They are pure escape artists. And her dog got out and apparently made it over to the Boebert's property, and Lauren Boebert shot it. And then Lauren Boebert let her run around screaming for the dog and calling her dog's name, and apparently was home at the time. And never said a word. This happened back in August. They've been putting up signs. They've been looking for their dog forever, because, this was not a young puppy. It was an older dog. And, older dogs get to be members of the family. And the Boeberts, being the pieces of shit they are, never even told the neighbors that they shot their dog. So there you go. She's claiming the dog attacked her goats, like a domesticated dog is going to go try to eat a goat. Well, folks, let's get one or two more good questions, and we'll read. I love it when you folks throw them out to me. I like to talk about what you like to talk about. And I tell you, while I'm waiting on that, I want to tell you folks, y'all are amazing. You really are. Let me tell you, Mrs. Texas Paul will tell you, I'm a real human being, folks. I am. I'm not just something in your computer here. I'm real. And I'm not a sociopath. I feel emotions. And a lot of the videos I do, and I don't know if you noticed, but I've taken a little break from doing some videos for Midas and whatnot. But, I was doing some of the heavier stuff for them. And I'll tell you, it gets to you. It gets to you. Doing that day in and day out. These newscasters that can sit there and smile while they tell you about a plane crash. I don't understand those folks. I don't. I cry. I can't stand when people feel pain. And it just gets to you. And you folks, the comments that you leave, the statements that you make, your point of view, your decency, your humanity, the fact that you actually give a shit. I know some of the people that watch are gay and some of the people that aren't. I would bet our audience is like pretty much, well, the ratio that we have in society, and everybody's decent. Everybody keeps, has the decent point of view. The LGBTQIA community, yeah, live your life. Y'all want for people what I want for people. That everybody just have a good life. And y'all really do lift me up and renew me so that I can keep on keeping on. And I'm very, very grateful to you. Any thoughts on Sherry Beasley is getting no attention in the North Carolina Senate race? You need to, I wouldn't be so worried about that at this point. She has been doing such a fantastic job. A lot of the candidates that we've been focusing on have been folks that were trailing 5 to 7 points, and Beasley's been doing an amazing job in North Carolina. They're running neck and neck. I mean, they've been, for the most part, within the margin of error in most polls. And I think you're going to see over the last few weeks, the last 2 to 3 weeks of this campaign, that people are really going to start drumbeating for all candidates and not just the ones that are needing it. So, yeah, Sherry Beasley is going to be getting a lot of love because, man, she really has led an amazing campaign. And if y'all don't know who she is, Google her. She would be an incredible senator. Val Demings as well. She's been doing amazing work down in Florida. The party hasn't been doing much for Val Demings, as far as ads and notoriety and whatnot, because, well, the chief's been kicking ass down there in Florida. She's been beating little old Marco Rubio like a drum. But you'll see over the last few weeks that the pushes will get very, very hard. If you don't know who she's talking about, she is talking about Mandela Barnes. And he is running against Russia Ron Johnson up in Wisconsin and doing, I'm telling you, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but an amazing job. He has run a campaign that everybody has said is a down-to-earth campaign where he is getting out on, it's a lot like Beto O'Rourke here in Texas, has been getting out on that one-to-one, look them in the eye, touch them, shake their hands. He has been doing an incredible job. His volunteers have been knocking on doors like crazy. If you got a few bucks, man, throw Mandela Barnes' way for the last few ad buys of the election. That he's incredible. He really is. And if you're in Wisconsin, please volunteer for him. This phone banking, that goes for all of you wherever you're at. This last few weeks worth of phone banking is the most critical. And you can phone bank for anybody anywhere. I mean, these things, no long distance charges, man. I mean, you can call for anybody. So if you've got a candidate in your area that's got it whipped or call for somebody else. They would love to have you. They would love to have you. I've been reading a lot of comments about that today. And I have to admit, that I am not caught up with the Carrie Lake Hobbs race. And I know Carrie Lake is just a freaking nut, and Hobbs has been trying to stay out of her way. But I read something today about Hobbs refusing to debate, and I couldn't find anything on that. And I didn't know if it was just trolls in my timeline or what. But it just seemed to me like that didn't sound like Hobbs to me. You know, her whole strategy has been to put Carrie Lake in the spotlight and let Carrie Lake self-immolate. A lot like Marcus Flowers did today with Marjorie Taylor Greene. He just kind of like poked the bear a few times and just let her set herself on fire. Yeah, Ron Johnson. You couldn't pick, Mandela Barnes couldn't have picked a better candidate to run against. He is so out of touch. He's been globetrotting for the last 6 years. He has. He goes to Russia for hunting trips. He goes, he's constantly in Israel, hitting up I don't know if you know this, folks, there's an entire cottage industry in Israel because, do you know where the word Armageddon comes from? Points to anybody in the audience that knows where the word Armageddon comes from. Nobody? Yeah, a bunch of heathens. It's a mistranslation in the Bible. It's the Valley of Armageddon. It's in Israel. And all of these, and you're not going to believe me, Google it. It's the truth. Every one of these major churches, every one of these smaller, more radical churches that do the missionary work and whatnot, all have offices in Israel. And they are the reason their evangelicals are so committed to protecting the state of Israel is they need the battle in the Valley of Armageddon to happen. That's the whole second coming story in the Bible. And if Israel goes away, no religious, doesn't follow the religious texts. They can't have their second coming. So not only are they not only are they staunch supporters of Israel, but they're doing it because they want the end of the world. Swear to God, folks, hand to God, whatever your version of God is or doesn't exist or however you feel, whatever you want me to swear on, I will swear on. That is why the evangelicals love Israel so much. And there is an entire industry that Republicans, they go to Israel to hit up. There's one street in Israel that is nothing but one church after another church after another church after another church, all put in place to bring about the end of mankind and the second coming. And they go collect money from these nuts. That's how we get like organizations like The Family that are providing Republican senators houses in D.C. to live in. If y'all haven't heard about that scandal, a radical church called The Family, church organization called The Family that has been providing, it's expensive to live in D.C. And if they can not pay $5,000 to $10,000 in rent a month, they're like, yay. So this church group went and bought houses in D.C. and gave them to GOP senators, charging them like 1/10 the going rate for rent, which is illegal. But hey, that's D.C. for you. Did they have a documentary on that Netflix? I did not know that, Ann. What's it called? Everybody should know about this. I am not anti-Christian. I am pro believe what you want to believe. But people need to know that these mega churches really are funding missions to Israel, trying to bring about the end of humanity. And I wish I was joking. I really wish I was joking. Oh, it was called The Family. Yeah. Yeah. Watch that one too. Did it cover their work in Uganda by any chance? Where their missionaries were supporting butchers that were murdering gay people? Well, I tell you, Benaloco, that bottom line, I like to be a straight shooter. I do. I like to be a straight shooter. I don't like to candy coat shit for people. Whatever it takes for you to vote, you have to do it. And it's got to be every election for the next foreseeable future that you can't take a day off. I mean, if your boss won't let you off, get up and walk out of your job. Because I'm telling you, folks, these people are really going to go full on fascism. They've been telling you. They told you the other day, they held a vote to codify your right to birth control, your right to contraception. The Democrats brought it to the floor, said, let's pass a law that codifies your right to contraception, because there are Republicans that were threatening, there are cases coming up before the Supreme Court that are, and you have to forgive me, I'm tongue-tied. I've been traveling all day. Somebody help me out. Griswold v. Connecticut. They're trying to overturn Griswold v. Connecticut, which is your right to contraception, your right, total right to privacy with your doctor. The subject that the case happened to be based on was contraception, but it actually means your right to privacy with your doctor, that the government can't get involved with it and tell you what your doctor can and cannot do. Sound familiar? When they overturned Roe. So they brought it up for a vote, said, look, we're going to codify this. We're not just going to allow this to be precedent. We're going to make it a law. And every Republican voted against it. They're telling you who they are. You have to vote. You have to vote. They're telling you, we're going to take this from you. They're telling you, we are going to take this from you. And what Elizabeth is talking about here, the Watchman's Decree, is being spread by retired General Flynn. If you don't know who the Watchmen are, this is a bunch of men. Just go to YouTube and search the Watchman Oath. You will be horrified and terrified by how many people are sitting there proclaiming the things that they are proclaiming. It is literally dragging us back to the 1800s is their goal. And there are a lot of them out there, and they think the Bible told them to do it. That's how dedicated they are. So we have to vote. And the other thing that I want to tell you, like I said, I'm a straight shooter. I tell it the way it is. Freedom ain't free, man. It's not free, and I don't just mean serving. I'm telling you, these billionaires love Republicans and the way they pander to them, because they have never taken in more money. The top 1% to 2% has never in our history taken in so much money and kept as much of it, because we used to tax them. We used to say you don't need $1 billion yachts. You don't need that. We're going to tax you so that we can have roads, we can have infrastructure, we can have the greatest middle class in the world existed when we had a 90% top tax bracket. And I know that sounds draconian, 90%, man, nobody wants that. But no, you do. You really do. Because it used to be capped at such a high rate that when they had a 90% tax bracket, one guy qualified for it. Folks, we've got to fix the income disparity in this country, or we will never be as great as we once were. We will never get the manufacturing back. We will never get, I'm going to be honest with you. Capitalism is great at becoming efficient. Profit is a hell of a driver. And we have become so efficient that we don't need as many jobs as we used to in a lot of fields. And the jobs that we do need require education. We're going to need guaranteed income in this country. In about 10 to 15 years, it's going to be required, because the bottom third are no longer going to be able to live in our country. They won't be able to afford the basics of food and housing. They're already struggling with housing, working multiple jobs. At some point, we're literally going to have to start paying people just to be here. Perfect example of that is Monaco. Everybody's heard about, the playground of the rich, Monaco on the Mediterranean. They have guaranteed income for their residents, because if they didn't, their residents couldn't afford to live there. They wouldn't have anybody to clean the streets. They wouldn't have anybody. They understand that you have to take care of that bottom third, because that bottom third does jobs you need done. All right. One last comment, and folks, we're going to have to call it a night, because me and Mrs. Texas Paul, like I said, have been at it all day long, and we're running out of energy, and I do appreciate your time, and I've taken up quite a bit of it already, and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for your time. Let's go with Benaloco. She's always got fantastic comments, and I appreciate her being here. Income has gone up 5% versus cost of living at 900%. That is a fact. Every so many years, it's usually 15 to 20, we have an economic reset. Back in the 70s, my father bought a $15,000 house, owned multiple cars, because that was kind of his thing, including a dune buggy. My mother didn't work, and he brought home about $7,000 a year. And that was the 70s. In the 80s, my dad was making $50,000 a year and could afford less than what he was affording on $5,700 a year, because the 80s sucked for working people. They were great for the investment class. The 80s were just the greed is good generation. It was amazing, but we had a reset. And the 80s is when the traditional family died. You just couldn't do it on one income anymore. It wasn't a matter whether women wanted to work, wanted to have careers, wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. You had to work, period. And that's when it happened. The 80s sucked. That reset sucked. And we had another one around 2000. It wasn't as aggressive as the 80s. You know, in the 80s, we had the tax policies were so insane. Their own party, George, I always draw attention to this. George Herbert Walker Bush attacked Ronald Reagan for having voodoo economics. Well, you know, it just didn't work. The numbers didn't work. They didn't add up. You know, that's the whole trickle down bullshit came out of. Well, around 2000, we had another reset, and it got a little bit worse for the average working person because let's face it, we've got a political party in this country that is wholly owned by the top 1%. And they're insane. And we in the Democratic Party are trying to do things like say, well, let's have universal health care. I mean, shit, if we're going to make it so expensive for people to live, at least we can do is give them health care. And Republicans are like, nope, not doing it. Everybody pays their own way till you die. And it's going to get to the point, you know, we're having serious inflation now. I just hope it doesn't what happens now isn't what happened in California in 2000. You know, you had horrible Republican governors and Pete Wilson and Arnold Schwarzenegger that were selling this dream that they were coming out of that turn of the century. Companies do it better. Government is bad. All that bullshit that Republicans, right wing is always sold. Then Gray Davis took office and he had a financial mess on his hands because of deregulation brought in by Pete Wilson and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a horrible governor. I don't know why people thought that actor could govern. Same reason I don't know why people thought Ronald Reagan could be president. But they tried. And then Gray Davis came in and he's like, look, our financial house is shit. This is going to be painful. And people didn't want to hear that. And they recalled him. And I hope we're smarter this time around. I hope that guys like me telling you the way it is, that yes, inflation sucks. It sucks right now. But Joe Biden didn't do that to you. And they're working to fix it. And we can't reward the people that set our fucking house on fire. We cannot hand power back to the Republicans and reward them for doing this. We can't do it. Amen, Dragon Racer. That's exactly what we need. That is exactly what we need. Hold the House and flip the Senate. I would like to see us make some gains in the House. There wasn't a lot of you may not be old enough to remember a guy by the name of Pat Foley. He used to be Speaker of the House. He was a Democrat. Democrats got kind of arrogant. It was around the turn of the century, a little earlier, and they had a midterm election that was supposed to favor Democrats, and we got blown out of the water. We did. We were completely out of touch, very high-minded in the way we talked about everything. We didn't talk to people. And we got our asses handed to us. And I'm hoping that this is the same thing for the Republicans. I hope that people realize just how off the rails they've gotten and how much they overreached, because I am hearing a lot of Republicans that have been lifetime Republicans that are saying, I can't do this. I can't vote for these people. They're insane. Oh, thank you. There you go. That's the one I was looking for. Cynthia Rice. A lot of people don't know who Tip O'Neill is. My mother was Irish, and she loved Tip O'Neill. You know how Rudy Giuliani, for the longest time, couldn't utter a sentence without saying something about 9/11? Well, Tip O'Neill couldn't pass a bill through Congress that didn't have money for Ireland in it. And that's what I mean by being out of touch. We had people that were in the 80s where we had, if you think it's bad now, imagine trying to buy a house at 18% interest or 15% interest or 16% interest. I remember my sister and her husband buying a small house at 16% interest. I mean, it's insane, and people were looking at Tip O'Neill, and he was guilty as charged. I mean, every bill he put across the damn floor had money in it for Ireland, and the Republicans ran on America first. Got to cut that foreign aid, and they cleaned our clock. So we need to sit here and we need to think about what our message needs to be over the last 3 weeks. And I will tell you, hear me out, folks. Hear me out. Hear me out. Sorry, Benedict. Trump. More Trump. Every time you can, tie Republicans to Trump. Abortion. Roe. Never let anybody forget what they just did. Griswold v. Connecticut. They're telling you, throw it in their faces that the government, the party that was supposed to be for small government is literally refusing to vote for your right to contraception. They're trying to take away your basic rights. And that's how we win this. Keep that the conversation. Don't let them make it about inflation. Inflation is bad. It is bad. It's not Joe Biden's fault, but it's not an easy conversation to have. It's not easy to explain. You can't put it into a soundbite. So it's not a winner to run on. Hey, we're fixing this. Just deflect from inflation, folks. Don't try to take it on head first. Don't try to get into an argument, because that's what they want. They want you to get into an argument with them about inflation, and they will just say, well, prices were cheaper when Trump was around. And that's it. That's all they'll do is sit and repeat that. But that's how we win, folks. Vote, support your candidates, repeat the word Trump all the time, everywhere. Point out the ridiculousness of what the Republican Party's become. Point out their invasion into people's lives, how they are insanely willing to take away your right to choose your medical care. Point out that your mother and your grandmother fought to break those ceilings. And here they are trying to nail them back up. That's how we win these elections. That's how we win these elections. And leave the fossil fuel industry alone. It's not a good fight right now. And I agree with you, Elizabeth. Inflation is global, but it's an argument that you just don't want to get into because we end up in the weeds and it's distracting. Trump. Roe. That's why, Midas Touch has a shirt out called Remember Rovember. I mean, the Rovember shirts are the message we need out there. That's the truth. That's the truth. And with that, Miss Elizabeth, I appreciate you. I am going to call it a night and wish y'all a happy evening. And I will see you in a little over a week. Love you folks. I meant what I said. You folks lift me up and keep me going. And I am going to do a bunch of work for us, and you're going to love it when I get back. You're going to love what I had to show you. But y'all have a wonderful evening. Old Texas Paul out.